Good morning, I'm Remo, and this is the Daily Signal for November 12th, 2025. We're starting with breaking news. Dozens of Israeli settlers have launched a massive arson attack in the West Bank, targeting Palestinian factories and farmland. And in a rare move, Israeli forces have arrested 4 of their own settlers after they attacked IDF soldiers trying to stop them. This unprecedented escalation is developing rapidly, and here's what we know so far.
Unfiltered. Now.
That's just the beginning. Here are 9 more critical stories breaking today that you absolutely need to know about. Sudan's violent bloodshed has become so intense that the destruction is now visible from space through satellite imagery. We're talking about conflict on a scale that can be seen from orbit. Urgent, Tropical Storm Feng Wang has killed at least 25 people in the Philippines and is now barreling toward Taiwan, where authorities are scrambling to evacuate thousands from vulnerable areas. Developing, Pakistan is directly accusing India of using proxies to carry out a major bombing in Islamabad. This is a massive geopolitical accusation that could escalate tensions between these nuclear powers. Breaking, a Turkish military aircraft has crashed in Georgia with 20 people on board. Search and rescue operations are underway as we speak. Urgent, in Mali, a TikTok influencer has reportedly been killed in a public execution as the country's jihadist crisis spirals completely out of control. Developing, UNICEF is sounding the alarm. Israel is blocking 1 million syringes needed to vaccinate children in Gaza, creating a humanitarian emergency. Breaking, Indian Prime Minister Modi is vowing that conspirators behind a New Delhi explosion will not be spared. Authorities are scrambling to respond to this security crisis. Urgent, climate protesters have clashed with UN security forces at a major summit in Brazil, disrupting international negotiations. Developing, Chinese authorities have sentenced a Bitcoin fraudster following one of the UK's largest ever cryptocurrency seizures. We're talking about a massive financial crime operation. These stories are developing fast. Let's get the critical details you need to know. This West Bank story is absolutely unprecedented. Dozens of Israeli settlers launched what authorities are calling a large-scale coordinated arson attack on Palestinian communities near Nablus and Tulkarm. They targeted factories, destroyed farmland, and torched vehicles. But here's what makes this explosive. When IDF soldiers arrived to stop the attack, the settlers turned on their own military, vandalizing army vehicles and attacking Israeli forces. In an extremely rare move, the IDF arrested 4 Israeli settlers. 4 Palestinians were wounded in the violence. This comes as settler attacks have reached crisis levels, over 7,000 documented attacks in just 2 years, resulting in dozens of Palestinian deaths. What's shocking here is that Israeli forces actually arrested their own citizens. This could signal a major shift in how Israel handles settler violence, or it could escalate internal tensions to a breaking point. The timing couldn't be worse. This is happening as international pressure on Israel is already at unprecedented levels. The situation in Sudan has reached a level of violence so catastrophic that satellite imagery can literally see the bloodshed and destruction from space. We're talking about conflict so intense, so widespread, that it's visible from orbit. This isn't just a local crisis anymore. This is destruction on a scale that space agencies are tracking. The humanitarian implications are staggering. When conflict becomes visible from space, you're looking at mass displacement, destroyed infrastructure, and casualties that authorities can't even properly count. International observers are calling this one of the world's most underreported disasters, and now we have visual proof from space of just how catastrophic this has become. This space-visible violence shows us that what's happening in Sudan isn't just affecting Sudan, it's a crisis that demands immediate global attention. Tropical Storm Feng Wang is carving a path of destruction across Southeast Asia, and the numbers are climbing. At least 25 people are confirmed dead in the Philippines from flooding and landslides, but authorities fear that number will rise significantly as rescue teams reach remote areas. Right now, Taiwan is in emergency mode. Thousands of people are being evacuated from vulnerable coastal and mountainous areas as this storm approaches. What makes this particularly dangerous is the storm's path. It's hitting areas still recovering from previous disasters, meaning infrastructure is already weakened. The timing is critical because this storm hit during harvest season in the Philippines, potentially destroying crops that millions depend on for survival. We're looking at both immediate casualties and long-term food security issues across multiple countries. Pakistan has made an explosive accusation that could reshape tensions in South Asia. Pakistani officials are directly blaming what they call India proxies for a major bombing in Islamabad. This isn't just finger-pointing. This is Pakistan publicly accusing India of orchestrating terrorism on Pakistani soil. The implications here are massive. We're talking about two nuclear-armed neighbors, and Pakistan is essentially accusing India of state-sponsored terrorism. This kind of direct accusation historically leads to diplomatic crises, border tensions, and sometimes military escalation. What makes this particularly dangerous is the timing. Both countries are dealing with internal political pressures, and external conflicts often become convenient distractions. The international community is watching this very closely, because when Pakistan and India tensions escalate, it affects global security. A Turkish military aircraft has crashed in Georgia with 20 people on board, and this is developing into a major international incident. Search and rescue operations are underway, but authorities haven't released casualty numbers yet, which usually means they're preparing for the worst. This crash is happening in Georgian territory, which adds a complex international dimension. Turkey and Georgia have generally good relations, but any military aircraft incident on foreign soil creates diplomatic complications. The fact that this involves 20 military personnel makes this a significant loss for Turkish forces. We're monitoring this closely because military aviation incidents often reveal broader issues, equipment problems, training issues, or even potential security threats. The location in Georgia, near several conflict zones, makes this crash particularly concerning for regional stability. This Mali story represents a shocking intersection of social media and violent extremism. Reports indicate a TikTok influencer has been killed in what's being described as a public execution, as Mali's jihadist crisis reaches new levels of brutality. This execution, if confirmed, shows how jihadist groups are specifically targeting social media influencers as part of their terror campaign. They're not just controlling territory, they're controlling information, silencing voices, and using public executions as propaganda tools. Mali's security situation has completely collapsed. Jihadist groups now control significant territory, and they're implementing extreme versions of their ideology, including public executions for crimes, like using social media. This represents a complete breakdown of state authority and human rights. UNICEF has revealed a humanitarian crisis that affects the most vulnerable population, children. Israel is blocking the entry of 1 million syringes needed for child vaccinations in Gaza. We're talking about basic medical supplies that children need to survive being blocked at checkpoints. This creates an immediate health emergency. Children in Gaza are already facing malnutrition, trauma, and limited medical care. Now they're being denied basic vaccinations against preventable diseases. UNICEF is calling this a deliberate obstruction of humanitarian aid. The international legal implications are severe. Blocking medical supplies for children could constitute violations of international humanitarian law. This is happening while Gaza's healthcare system is already collapsed, meaning children could die from preventable diseases. Indian Prime Minister Modi has issued a strong response to what appears to be a significant security incident in New Delhi. His statement that conspirators will not be spared suggests authorities believe this was a coordinated attack, not an accident. Modi's language indicates this is being treated as a terrorism incident. When the Prime Minister personally addresses a security situation, it means India's security apparatus is on high alert. This could trigger increased security measures across major Indian cities. The timing is significant. India is dealing with multiple security challenges, and any major incident in the capital raises questions about intelligence failures and security preparedness. Modi's strong response suggests this incident is being treated as a major threat. Climate protesters have clashed with UN security forces at a major climate summit in Brazil, disrupting what were supposed to be critical international negotiations on climate action. This represents a complete breakdown in the diplomatic process. When protesters clash with UN security at international summits, it signals that formal diplomatic channels are failing. These protesters clearly believe that traditional negotiations aren't moving fast enough to address the climate crisis, so they're taking direct action. This disruption could derail important climate negotiations at a time when global cooperation is desperately needed. The images of violence at a climate summit send a powerful message about how urgent the crisis has become. Chinese authorities have concluded one of the largest cryptocurrency fraud investigations in UK history, resulting in major seizures and a significant jail sentence. This case represents the international scope of cryptocurrency crime and the growing cooperation between countries to combat it. The scale of this fraud operation shows how sophisticated cryptocurrency criminals have become. When authorities describe seizures as major, we're typically talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in stolen cryptocurrency. This case sets important precedents for international cryptocurrency crime enforcement. It shows that criminals can't hide behind international borders when committing crypto fraud, and it demonstrates how countries are cooperating to track and prosecute these crimes. What we're seeing today isn't just a collection of random events. This is all part of bigger crisis patterns that are reshaping our world right now. Look at the connections. We have violent conflicts visible from space in Sudan, massive natural disasters killing dozens in Southeast Asia, nuclear powers accusing each other of terrorism, and humanitarian aid being blocked for children. This isn't normal diplomatic tension. This is a world where multiple crisis systems are failing simultaneously. The West Bank story shows us how even allied relationships are breaking down under pressure. When Israeli forces arrest their own settlers, it reveals internal contradictions that could reshape Middle Eastern politics. The Pakistan-India accusation shows nuclear powers making dangerous escalations. The climate summit violence shows environmental negotiations are failing. Here's what this means for everyone. When crisis systems fail in multiple places simultaneously, it creates unpredictable cascading effects. Economic markets get volatile, migration patterns shift, and international cooperation becomes harder just when we need it most. We're looking at a world where traditional diplomatic solutions aren't keeping pace with crisis escalation. Whether it's climate change, regional conflicts, or international crime, the old systems for managing global problems are being overwhelmed by the speed and scale of current crises. The stakes couldn't be higher. These aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of larger systems under unprecedented stress. We'll continue monitoring these developing situations because what happens next could reshape international relations, regional security, and global cooperation for years to come. This has been the Daily Signal. I'm Remo. Stay informed, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow with the latest breaking developments.
Unfiltered.